Dr. Grace Vuoto is here. She is with the Edmund Burke Institute, and you hear her on a bunch of different radio shows. She's one of my favorite people on the whole planet. Dr. Grace, welcome back to the Rusty Humphries Show. How are you doing?
I am well, battling a cold, but apart from that, very excited to begin 2012. How about you?
Good, and you have that new baby. How's that going?
It is very demanding, but very joyful.
Okay, so you have time to write still?
I'm making the time. I'm kind of learning to multitask.
Now, is this why you're so cranky on Newt Gingrich? Because the baby's got you up all night, makes you not like Newt Gingrich? Why don't you take your anger out on somebody else? I'm kidding.
You know what? The baby focuses the mind on the kind of leader that I really want to be a role model for him.
Yeah.
And Mr. Gingrich is not one of them, as you can tell.
Okay, but now, I listen, we are in a very, very tough time in American history, in world history. Do I really care that he's been married before? Why should I care about those things? I care about what he's going to do for my country right now.
You know, Rusty, especially when it's a tough and critical time, that's the moment when we shouldn't sell out our principles when we look to unseat Obama, because we're going to be called hypocrites. This guy is part of the corrupt Washington class that got us in this mess. And he's also not a moral man. This is a man who has had numerous infidelities, 3 wives, probably and counting, and he's accusing others of being not conservative enough. One of the things I point out, Rusty, is this. Look, it was the liberals who historically have made the case that we shouldn't look at somebody's private life when we judge them. The only thing that matters is what they do in public. And I'm arguing that if we accept that premise, we are falling into a liberal trap. Remember, during the Clinton years, the conservatives were saying, hell no, private morality really matters. Now, why all of a sudden have we forgotten the very same thing that we used to be saying when Clinton was up to his shenanigans?
Okay, let me ask you, stop you right there. Dr. Grace Vuoto here on the Rusty Humphries Show. Let me ask you a couple things. Do you believe in grace, that people, that God has grace for people?
Absolutely.
Do you believe that people can learn from their mistakes?
Absolutely.
And people can change?
Yes.
Do you not see a man who has changed? A man who is...
No, absolutely not.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, let me make 2 points, Rusty. Wait a minute. This is very important.
All right.
First of all, of course, we believe in grace and forgiveness and all of those great Christian virtues. And when we're talking about somebody who wants to be a private citizen, it's one thing. But then when we're talking about somebody who's supposed to be the head of our party, our leader, our role model, then I hold a very high standard for who I choose. And Newt Gingrich doesn't fit that bill. So the first point to make, Rusty, is there's a distinction between a private citizen and somebody who's going to be the leader of a conservative movement. Gingrich is not suitable for that task. And the second point to be made, Rusty, is that we would be having essentially a man who has betrayed conservative principles, not just when it comes to his private morality, but even in his public life. And if you say that this is a man who has changed, show me the signs of that. This is a guy who changes his opinion from day to day. I mean, look, he said he was going to run a positive campaign. Then he lost in Iowa. Now he's running a negative campaign.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad I'm
being a Massachusetts moderate, and now he's accusing him of being a corporate raider. He's all over the map, which means what? This is a man who has no principles. Right. And I don't see a man who is truly reformed. I don't see a man who truly embodies Christian values in any way, shape, or form. He's a complete hypocrite and a serial liar.
All right, Dr. Grace Vuoto here on the Rusty Humphries Show. I got to tell you, I'm glad he's stepping up against Mitt Romney. I think it was right. If they're gonna go dirty, you better stand up to him.
Well, you know what? If that's the case, don't go out there saying that initially you're going to run a positive campaign. You're making a fool of yourself.
He tried.
He tried, but that's the point about him. Everything he does, it's all about whatever suits his self-interest. He's not a man of any principle. You know, one of the reasons that he actually didn't run any negative ads initially, he doesn't have the money to compete with Mitt Romney because he hasn't been disciplined enough to organize a campaign to raise as much money as Romney has. Everything he says and does, it's for his political convenience. He's an opportunist. opportunist. Therefore, the charges that he makes against Romney don't stick. And let me tell you something else. I got to tell you this, Rusty. If I was advising Gingrich, I would say you're making a complete fool of yourself, because now you're arguing two things that are completely contradictory. On the one hand, you're trying to tell us that Mitt Romney is a Massachusetts moderate, meaning, he's a namby-pamby liberal. That's what you're trying to tell us, that
Right.
he's kind of like a liberal in disguise. But now you've come out contradicting yourself, saying he's this corporate raider that is the embodiment of capitalism to some extent, or the free enterprise system. Look, one of the points that we made when Gingrich announced his candidacy, we warned everybody, this guy is completely undisciplined. He's undisciplined in his private life, as we've seen, and he's undisciplined in his public life. And when you look at his campaign strategy, you see that he's shooting in every single direction, and nothing is going to stick.
Okay. Dr. Grace Vuoto here. She is the founder and executive director of the Edmund Burke Institute. All right, if Newt is not your guy, who's your guy?
Well, look, I've said this many, many times, Rusty. It is really sad that we are facing a field where there's a plague on just about everybody's house there in that Republican primary. And this points to the fact that we have lost so much ground to this liberal culture that we have very, very weak leaders now, because our education system is weak and the moral fiber of our society is weak. So you can't suddenly expect that we're going to have grand leaders who emerge out of our society. So I think that there's a flaw with every single person out there. But let me say this. One of the key points that we made when we were arguing against Obama was we said the guy wasn't experienced enough to lead us.
Right.
And so we've got to begin by looking at who has executive experience. I think anybody that doesn't have executive experience in that field is automatically disqualified. That includes Rick Santorum, because then we would be a bunch of hypocrites. We said that Obama wasn't qualified enough. We can't now send up Rick Santorum. So who's left? It's only the governors. Unfortunately, Rick Perry has shot himself in the foot with all his ridiculous debate gaffes. John Huntsman is polling at 1%. Who is left? We've only got Mitt Romney, who's got the executive experience. I'm not saying this guy makes my heart go pitter-patter, but don't blame me for that. I blame society at large, because it's a society where you have people that are constantly conceding ground to the liberals. And then what are we left with? A weak field of candidates to choose from.
Okay, so what do we do? Is there any way to fix it?
Well, look, we've got to understand what our priorities are, Rusty. The most important priority right now is we've got not just a liberal in the White House, we've got a radical socialist, and we've got to get him out. And I don't care who gets him out at this point. So beggars can't be choosers. Our first goal is get him out. And the only person I see out there in the field that is capable enough to get the man out is Mitt Romney. He has handled himself very well in the debates, and he's all we've got. And if we're not happy with what we've got one alternative. You got to make better conservative babies that are going to become great leaders in the future.
Here's the problem, Grace, and I love you, and I think you're doing great. The problem is that this is the exact same setup we had with John McCain, and the exact same thing is about to happen. John McCain is getting, Mitt Romney's getting the pass like John McCain did from the media. Oh, they're not going after him. They're going to give him a pass. They're going after everybody else. And then the second he's the nominee, they are going to destroy him, and it will be quick and painless. And we'll have 4 more years of Obama. It's done and done.
Rusty, I'm sorry, but I think you're wrong, because, look, the issue in this campaign is going to be Obama's record. Remember, McCain didn't have a solid Obama record to run against. We just had a lot of hope and change, all those words. But
there's not enough difference. There's not enough difference between the policies of the two, and people are going to go, well, there's not that much difference. Obamacare, Romney care, those kind of things, and they're going to say, you know what, we might as well just stay with what we got.
I disagree with you, and I disagree with you for many, many reasons. One of them is that the economy is just at a standstill, and there's so many people that are disillusioned with Obama. But you know what, Rusty? They're going to go, I don't understand your argument, they're going to go after any candidate that we throw up.
I
the media
agree,
right now
but what they've done is they've given him
fire until they. You think they're not going to go after Newt Gingrich?
No, my
you know
point
the kind of dirt they've got on him if he's our nominee?
Right, that's my point. We all know what's under in Newt's closet. It's not going to be a big surprise. It will be when it comes out for Romney.
We all know what's in Romney's closet. And what I find ridiculous right now is that you have the Republican Party going after Romney for his capitalist record. Are you kidding me? And during the debates, these people like Santorum and Newt Gingrich, they were quoting the Washington Post and the New York Times. I mean, are you kidding me? These people are such big hypocrites. You can't have Republicans attacking one another based on the free enterprise system.
Is it not, though, a prelude of what the Democrats are going to do?
Well, let the Democrats do it. But don't sell out your own values by actually piling on with this crazy class warfare and this vilification of the free market system.
All right. Dr. Grace Vuoto is her name. You can read her at edmundburkeinstitute.org, edmundburkeinstitute.org. Say hi to Jeff for me, would you please?
I will, Rusty. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
You know that I still love you, no matter how much we disagree.
I know. Even though you're really, really wrong here, I still love you. It's okay.
You know, even though you're really, really wrong, I'm prepared to have you over for dinner anytime.
Dr. Grace Vuoto, edmundburkeinstitute.org. We'll take a quick one. We'll be right back. Who do you agree with? You think Grace is right or am I right? I'll take your calls. 1-800-449-TALK, 1-800-449-8255. Be right back.